Hey everybody, welcome back to the 70-somethingth episode of Taps and Patience. It might be 72, it might be 71.
72, I think.
72? Okay. I still didn't look for new podcast music, and I had this one on my soundbar, so that's why we got this music. I am AJ with Audacity Micro, here with Harrison from Precision Ingenuity. How you doing, Harrison?
High highs and low lows. How are you?
I am, kind of same. But speaking of high highs, I think we need to start off with shout outs to some new Patreons.
Ooh.
So we have, I'm just going to list out all the Patreons. But we have EJ from Nocturnal Welding, Simon, Thought Bomb Design, and Jake Brownson. And I did get clarification from Jake that I can say his last name. Simon, if you would like me to say your last name or not, please send me a message. But yeah, thanks everybody for supporting us. They all signed up for the $10 a month tier, which I really appreciate. That money will be huge in helping Harrison and I get to IMTS and do our meetup there. I need to poke Penta Machine Co. again to see if they'll let us use their booth. I asked them and they didn't answer me yet. But we are planning on doing a meetup at IMTS. Harrison and I will both be there. And maybe Harrison's business partner? Question mark? Is he a go
he's
yet?
Coming. Yeah, he's coming. It's just a question of if he's coming alone or with his wife.
Okay.
So they're trying to figure that side out.
Okay, yeah. Our current room would be fine if he was coming by himself, but probably not with another person.
Yeah, which I don't know why he'd want to bring his wife. But I just mentioned that we, going to ITS, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I can bring my wife," and I'm just like, "This isn't really something that your wife is probably gonna want to run around and do."
Yeah, my wife came up with me last IMTS, but she did not go to the show. She kind of hung out in Chicago, and we actually, I think, had the kids with us too. And I think she kind of enjoyed it and also kind of didn't because she had to shepherd 3 young children around Chicago. But
I asked my wife, and she was just like, "No, lots of people, machines, that's not my thing."
Yeah,
and she's like, and then she's like, "And I don't want to go around Chicago without you." So, anyways,
I don't blame her. I hate driving in Chicago.
Yeah,
I like my little rural area here with no traffic.
But that's okay. We'll see. I'll get an answer from Weston. Hopefully, he's out all of this week, and he comes back on Tuesday next week. So that's been part of my stresses this week, is just being a solo guy in a new shop, trying to get a bunch of stuff done with a new machine. So I've got a lot of, I won't say unpleasant, but jobs that have outstayed their welcome that I need to get off my list.
All right, before we get into that, though, let's finish up administrative details. Speaking of things that have overstayed their welcome. If you are watching this on YouTube, we are also a podcast. If you are listening to this as a podcast, we also have the full video up on YouTube. Patreons get early access to the YouTube video, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I may have to share a video on the Patreon that I can't show on my own YouTube channel because I kind of show a Xometry part, and Xometry kind of got mad at me. And I tried, and it's not worth trying to blur out the part. So that will become a Patreon exclusive for the Taps and Patience Patreon. Patreon link down in the description, yada, yada, yada. Oh, there was one other thing I could have sworn.
Coins. We're gonna try to get our Patreon subscribers coins.
We definitely are gonna get our Patreon subscribers coins.
Yeah.
We're not ready to announce the timeline or content on that yet, as Harrison and I are still very busy and disorganized. But we will at some point announce hey, if you sign up now, you will get a coin, and all of our existing members who are signed up at that point will also get a coin, not just the new ones. But so that is coming in the future. I don't know. I guess that's all I got. I thought there was some other administrative detail, but I can't remember what it is.
Was there any businesses you were going to do a shout out for?
Oh, no, but if you are a small business who would like a shout out on our podcast for free, send me a message and I will give you a shout out on our podcast for free. The only catch is you have to offer a physical service or make a physical product and be at least a relatively small business.
I like it. That'll work. Is that everything?
So, how's the Haas?
Oh my goodness. Finally cutting chips. So
Woo! Well, hopefully it's cutting stock into chips.
Yeah. What was the last time we talked about? Because I don't think the machine was running.
I don't know.
So, yeah, because we got the machine running last Thursday.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I think our last episode was called like the Haas Tech doesn't like the snow or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's a lot to talk about with the Haas then. So, a 1-day install turned into a 3-day install. Okay. And the short story is the Haas Tech put a 0 where there was supposed to be an other number. And we ended up spending basically 2 days trying to get the 5-axis dialed in because the probe wasn't working. Basically because we were trying to probe at a height of 0 and it was saying that it could not find that surface because it wasn't moving. So there was no surface to find. Because the height was 0. So glad we got that sorted out. I was a little frustrated with it. Guy was super nice. There was definitely some tension because I had jobs that I was planning on running on that machine and I was unable to do it and it was just taking forever. But we got the machine running. So the Haas Tech ended up coming on Tuesday and we got the machine running on Thursday at like 5:00. And me and Weston stayed late, and at around 8:00 we turned our first chips, and our first chips was a piece of stainless that was like a 2.5 inch tall by an inch wide by like 4 inches long part, and I used a half inch diameter 2 inches long cutter 4-flute and did a full depth high efficiency toolpath around the outside of the part, and it just cut like butter. It just put the biggest smile on my face, and like I couldn't sleep at all the next night because I was super excited and everything was just working. And then on Monday, because everything kind of got pushed back, I ran my first 5-axis part that shipped on the same day for Xometry.
Okay.
So it was a part that didn't have to be a 5-axis part. It was a part that I got because I wasn't sure if I was going to run it on the Haas or the Tormach, just kind of depend on when the machines ended up working out. But it was going to be like a 6-op setup part on the Tormach, and I wanted to try to run it as a 5-axis part. It was basically a rectangle. A rectangle if you cut it on the diagonal and had the center bored out and then had a bunch of holes all the way around it.
Okay.
And so could be done with a 3-axis machine, but basically would have been a 6-op part. And so was very excited that it was basically a 2-op part with the 5-axis and then the decking of the stock material on the bottom.
So it sounds like you're picking up 5-axis programming awfully fast here.
Yeah, no, like, okay, so when we ran that part, I don't know what happened. I don't know if the word got out, but I had like 20 people storm the shop right when I started running it. And I was getting like 20 questions from everyone, and my stress levels were at the max.
I could not work like that. I would make everybody leave or just like give up and go home. Like that's where I would be.
Yeah. And so they were all like friends and family and aunts and uncles and just like grandparents and random people off the street who had seen the business had been, being worked on. And it was a nut house. And I'm trying to run my very first 5-axis part. And I wanted to like throat punch so many of those people. I was just like, leave me alone. Like, this is super stressful.
Yeah.
This is not the time for 20 questions. But the good news is that I built the machine in Fusion. I simulated everything and the part ran perfect. And there's a really cool feature that I found out on the Haas, which if you don't know about this, you should know. There's one of those settings you can turn on that says you have to push the go button for the machine to run, and as soon as you let off, it'll stop. So it's basically
I've heard about that.
it's basically an automatic feed hold if you let off the green button. And so I was using that for the 5-axis and running it like 5% rapids and single blocking and all this other different stuff, and basically making sure that my tools were going where they said they were, and it ended up running perfectly. So
How do you turn that on?
So I believe it was setting 103.
I wonder if mine has that. What's it called?
Feed hold. It's something feed hold. Automatic feed hold or something like that.
Okay, I will look into that.
But if you're running a very sketchy part where you want to be able to react quickly, highly recommend it. So it ended up working out great. It was all 3+2 program, except for the deburr was a full 5-axis with simultaneous movements.
Fancy.
And so that one was really cool because it's just like the whole thing's like moving and rotating around, and the tool's like doing this dance, and it was stressful, but it was very cool, and it was kind of like toying with the idea of like full simultaneous 5-axis.
Was that using the deburr toolpath?
Yeah, just the deburr toolpath, okay. and I had to do something weird. I don't know if it's weird, and this is something I'd like to figure out, because it was the deburr toolpath was trying to go behind the bottom of the part into the vise. And I tried to set a limit angle to where it would only rotate to 90 degrees to where it wouldn't get into the bottom side of the part, and tried to exclude some of the edges it was trying to get to. And what I ended up having to do was I had to select all of my work holding as fixturing.
Okay.
In that, and it increased the compute time like tenfold for that part, for that feature.
Yeah.
And so it went from like a really fast calculation to super long, and it was really annoying. Part of that could probably be done because I downloaded the full models off of. So right now I have a Haas adapter plate and a Haas 3-inch vise, and downloading those models, they're heavily featured. Yeah. And so if I defeatured some things, that would probably help. But I was hoping that I wouldn't have to select those in the first place. But when I tried to limit the tilt angle to like 90 degrees, it would error out. So there's some weird things with the deburr toolpath. I'm going to have to figure out different tips and tricks. But I ended up getting it to work at the sacrifice of longer compute times on my computer.
Yeah.
So, but it was a lot of fun. And and here's another thing. And I'd love to get some community feedback on this, because I'm sure it's gonna cause problems, what I'm about to say. So Haas has a rough MRZP probing routine in the controller.
MRZP
is machine zero rotary point. So okay. What that is if you're running full 5-axis, and I'm sure other machines have this, but this is what Haas calls it. It basically finds the 0 point of rotation on your 5-axis machine, where all axes are at 0, and then you can put anything on it and probe it like a normal part, and then run a 5-axis program, and it'll rotate around and know where that part's at. So it doesn't have to be perfectly on center. Or if your 3D if your physical model does not match your digital model, you can probe and correct for it, and the program will still run properly. It's really cool, really cool. But in the process of doing that, it's only a rough MRZP calculation, like the one that Haas has in the controller, and their tolerance for it is 2 thou, plus or minus 2 thou. And the Haas tech had his own program that he had wrote that he could run and manually tweak the values to get it in tighter.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't do that because it was a machine setup, and if I wanted to have him do it, I'd have to pay to have him come out another time and dial it in better. And so,
Dumb.
yeah. So that kind of annoyed me just a little bit. And the fact that there's not like and the thing is, I think the UMC line has like a the ability to do that fine adjust and get it dialed in. Like you can do a rough MRZP and then a finishing MRZP
Mm-hmm.
where it gets more accurate. And so, because I know I've seen Haas tips of the days on how to do both of those. I haven't dived enough into my controller, but it looks like mine's out in one of the axes by about one and a half thou, and the other two are about half a thou, 5/10 or so.
Okay.
And what that ended up meaning for my final part when I ran it was that I had to leave about half a thou on some of my different machine surfaces, and then it came out perfectly in spec. So like my first part, there was a few features that were a little undersized. I think if I fix my MRZP, I won't have to correct it by tweaking offsets and things.
Yeah. Interesting. So what
So
makes it rough versus fine? Like it should be the same math either way.
yes and no. So the roughing, the way it does it is there's a center bore in the platter.
Mm-hmm.
It probes to find the center of that, and then it tilts the rotary axis up 90 and touches the platter, tilts it 180 from that one and touches the platter. And based off of those calculations, it finds the 0 point. But depending on how the platter rotates and how if there's anything off in the twist when it's going, I don't know all the technical jargon for all this. But basically, it's a rough approximation of it, but if your platter is a little bit thicker in one area or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that probing routine doesn't have enough data points to accurately get it within better than two thou, I believe.
Okay. So it just needs to do like 30 more measurements, average them out, and that'll give you a
Yes.
better.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so there's a probing routine that I've seen online, and this is what I thought the controller had. You put the little ball on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and you locate it in one position, and then it'll move to like 6 or 7 different positions and probe and find where that ball is exactly.
Yeah.
It'll compare where it's actually at to where it thinks it should be, and it'll adjust the MRZP and average out all of those different orientations. And that's
Hmm.
basically what the guy's program did, except it would rotate, probe the ball, and then it would spit out how far off it was, and then he would manually tweak it and rerun it. So the way he was doing it seemed a lot slower than what I saw on the automated way. So I'm just confused on a few different things on how on what needs to be done, because I want to learn how to do that for two reasons. One, if my trunnion ever gets bumped or misaligned and I need to realign it, I don't want to have to pay someone to come in and do that every single
Mm-hmm.
time. And two, if I do want to pull off the trunnion and run a large part or anything like that, I
Yeah.
want to be able to set it back up. So I can get it close. I can get it back to where it is right now, but I'd like to get it better than where it's at right now, which I know is possible. I know it's doable. It's just figuring out how to do it.
Yeah. Back on the Pocket NC, we used to have a test part that was basically like you would take a piece of material and you would bore holes halfway through the material facing each other. And then you could slide a gauge pin through to see if it would go or not.
Gotcha.
And it would at least it would test your alignment. It wouldn't really calibrate it. Like you couldn't
Mm-hmm.
easily use that to dial it in, but you can see, okay, it's a little bit off in X, it's a little bit off in Y.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you could try different sized gauge pins or something, but
Yeah, and then see if it makes it better or worse.
yeah.
Yeah, I could do something like that. We'll see. I'll play around with it some. And I'll do some research online, and I'm sure I can probably bug some different individuals on Instagram to
Yep.
figure out better ways to do it. But regardless of all that, it was super fun and exciting, and I basically jumped headfirst into 5-axis, and I haven't run anything since that first part because I have a whole bunch of other 3-axis work that I took on. But using the Haas over the Tormach is just
Yep.
it's just night and day. It puts a smile on my face, and I haven't had any problems except for today. I've had my probe not read.
Hmm.
And I don't know if the batteries that it came with, if they're just a little bit weak, but like, and it just showed up today. But what's happening is it goes to probe a surface, and then it'll be like either obstruction, path obstruction, or surface not found. And then I'll reset the machine, run the same program. It might error out at a different point, or it might do the whole probing routine and then run the part. And so I tried wiping down the probe and the receiver, and that
Mm-hmm.
helped. But it still errored out like 60% of the time, and it was really weird.
Is your machine in bright sunlight?
No, there's no windows
Have you
anywhere near.
tried this dumb thing, but it can actually help? Have you tried doing it with the lights off?
No.
Because it is infrared and sometimes weird effects happen. Oh, there's also several power settings.
Oh, okay.
I'm just having flashbacks to trying to get mine to work, where I learned a lot about Renishaw probes, even though I didn't get mine to work. Have you? Yeah, there are several like brightness power settings of the infrared signal, and I believe they ship at the lowest power setting to save battery on the probe.
Okay.
There is a Renishaw app that will walk you through the probe setup process, because it's like this weird Morse code thing
Yeah.
where it's like, tap it 3 times and then hold it for 3 seconds and then tap it, and the UI on the probe was so bad that they made an app to walk you through the Morse code, and the app will tell you like, push now, release, push once, release, push and hold for this long. Like all the
Yeah.
timers are set out for you.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I bet it's a power setting thing.
It could be, because it seemed like it was just losing signal for
Mm-hmm.
just a split second, and then it was fine. And I haven't had any problems with the probe up until now. And so some of that makes me think it's a weak battery, but I'm not sure.
Battery should be fine.
Should be, but you never know. Maybe I got a bad battery. I don't know.
That does happen, and counterfeits are a real thing with those batteries.
Yeah, because I mean they shipped with the Renishaw, and so who knows how long that Renishaw's been sitting somewhere, and if you just happen to get a bad, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. It could be fine. It could be what you're saying with the power settings. We'll see if the problem persists, and then if it doesn't persist, then I'll just say it's some sort of a fluke to maybe it was reflecting weird, and I don't know.
I assume
So
that your sensor is in a good place where it has good line of sight, and it's not being like blocked by your trunnion.
it was at one point, but the Haas Tech tweaked it a little bit, which made me think that maybe it wasn't out of line of sight. The only reason that I don't think it's that is because the table probe is lower, and I've never had any issues with that.
Hmm.
Which that's another thing I'm going to need to move. Right now, it's on the side of the table opposite from the trunnion in the back corner, and I want to move it to the trunnion side, but I need to make a riser for it.
Yep.
Because it's too low right now. But
yeah, crank up the brightness on that probe, and I think you should be fine.
Yeah, I didn't.
Says the guy without a functional Renishaw probe.
Well, you started talking like you knew what you were doing, and I was just like, really now? Like, did you get your probe? But
oh, I played with settings though.
yeah. I forgot that you had played with yours for a little while before you figured out that it wouldn't work.
A little while, like days.
But so I don't think this is. I think this is probably just a fluke. We'll see. Up until this point, I've been probing. I've been doing a lot of in-process probing, and I absolutely love it. Like, I am in love with wireless probing working. Once again, I've been here before with the Tormach. Let's hope I don't run into the same problems with the Haas. I will be really mad if that happens.
Yeah. I think March is going to be the month that I get Renishaw probing up and running on this machine.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I am gonna have to get a different ball for our current Renaissance probe
Too
because
big, the one that's
that's
on
six
there.
that's 6 inches just massive. Not that I run parts as small as you, but I do have enough small features typically on my parts that because like I have a lot of 1/4 inch size holes,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of times I'd like to probe them whenever I flip apart or something like that, and that 6 millimeters, while it could technically fit in them, it's just
Yeah.
it's just a little too tight. So yeah, probably
I I had
probably
that
gonna.
experience thread milling the other day. I was thread milling some, I think it was M1.2 holes, which is, I believe, it's approximately a 1 millimeter tap drill
Mm-hmm.
size. And then my thread mill that I had on hand was approximately 1 millimeter.
Oh yeah.
What I ended up doing is I switched it to running conventional instead of climb cutting. And that way it spiraled down in and kind of cut its way larger as it went.
So can I? Is this the part? So you told me that you had a part problem, and we talked about a couple different solutions for it, and I'm curious as to what you ended up doing.
Okay.
Is this huh?
This was not that part. This part was, except for my thread mill being very close to my pre-drill size, this part
Oh,
was
okay.
was smooth. It was butter. Yeah. So the part I had issues with was what I thought would be a super easy part. It had some long tools, but it was just HDPE, and
Mm-hmm.
like I do long tools all the time, so I wasn't worried about that. But what ended up killing me is the stupid lure or whatever you call it thread, the like medical syringe thread. And particularly, my problem was there's a cone in the middle of that thread. And any tool path you get with a thread mill is going to cut right through that cone in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried things, I tried things, I tried things. I tried hand programming it, but it was like 3 a.m. at this point, and I just couldn't. I gave up on the hand programming it. And eventually, what I ended up doing is I made a tap.
Oh, you made a tap?
I made a custom tap. So the part that I was thread milling was 410 stainless, which is a hardenable stainless, and it happened to be about the right size. And so I stuck a piece of that in the machine. I took a infusion. I took a chunk of material and like extruded it over where the thread was. The thread was modeled in the fusion model, and I just did a Boolean subtract. Added some like thread relief and some tool clearances and yada yada yada, like some chip evacuation spots,
Mm-hmm.
and just machined the male version of the thread. And so I had like the male version, and I tried to cut. Thread did not cut whatsoever.
Oh man.
So what I figured out is if I took a torch and just lightly heated the my tap. I think my
Oh
tap
no.
was just dull. It wasn't sharp enough, but with just a little bit of heat, it made the material soft enough that it would cut. And
Okay.
and it worked. It gave me really nice looking threads. There was a little bit of stringing that I had to deal with because of the tap being a little bit hot.
Mm-hmm.
But it really was not hot. It was like hot to the touch, but not like instantly burn you kind of hot. It was probably like 120 degrees or so.
Gotcha.
But just that little bit of heat made it cut. And it took me so many attempts to finally get to the point where I got it. I think I had 24 inches of material to get a part that was 3 inches long, and I used every bit of that 24 inches. I have zero left.
Oh my goodness.
There were two parts, I guess, and the other part took me a couple attempts for a couple different reasons, but nothing important. It's just some order of operations on the other part. So I guess I used about 12 inches apart or 12 inches to get this like 2 inch long part. But
Did you try the trace method?
I did try the trace method, and my issue was still like lead-ins,
Oh.
and the with that cone there, even like the thread mills I had that would be the right size to make the right depth of thread, they were still too wide and would dig into that cone.
Mm.
So I think the only way you can reasonably machine these things is on a lathe. with a single point insert.
Gotcha. So then my next question is, do they even make a tap for that? Or is that you're making your own the only way you could do it?
You can get specialized taps, but they're like $1,500 in like 8-week lead time.
Oh my goodness.
So, and considering like these two parts were probably $1,500 total combined, like, yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, this was one of those parts where it's like, I'm looking at my resume that I have tucked in a folder on my computer. Like, should I start sprucing this up? Like, I was at that point on these parts. It's like, I don't know if this is gonna work out. I suck at machining.
Oh my goodness.
I was there. But anyway, I did eventually get those shipped. They shipped, I think it was technically 2 business days late. I think it was 4 days because of the weekend. But I did get them to ship. The problem is I ate up all of my margin with those parts, and now I have been playing catch up ever since. Let's see, 2 days ago, I was up until 4 a.m. working on parts. And then I went to bed, woke back up at like 9 or something, and finished up those parts. Our FedEx closes at 7:30. I finished them up at like 7:40.
Oh
and
my.
But down in Indianapolis, which is 45 minutes away, there is a FedEx that closes an hour later. So I ran down to Indianapolis 45 minutes and just barely made it in time. According to the receipt, I had like 90 seconds before they, technically closed. Not that I couldn't have banged on the door and stared at them with puppy dog eyes, but to get a couple extra minutes. But they were just about to close as I got those parts there. So those shipped on time.
Oh my goodness.
Now I'm working on more parts that need to ship tomorrow. And they're fairly simple. Like, there's nothing crazy on them, but they're relatively large amounts of material removal. And I need to make 28 of them. And I think they're going to be 4-aught parts.
Gotcha.
I say think because I haven't even finished the last couple ops here. But I just got those running a little bit earlier today. So it's probably another 4 a.m. night for me. And then
that's not good.
Yeah, I need a break.
That's how it goes sometimes, though. I've been there. I had my hell week a couple times last year, but they were very profitable weeks. They were just a lot of late nights.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say part of the reason why my schedule has been a little bit more condensed for these last couple, for the last week or two, is because in early March I am taking a vacation. It'll be the longest me and my wife have been away from kids since my first kid was born.
Oh my.
And so I'm looking forward to that. But because of that, I've been pushing stuff, earlier into, the end of February because the beginning of March is spent for me. So,
yep.
I will get a vacation at the end of this. Just I'm not there yet.
It'll be very nice when you get there, though.
It will be very nice when I get there.
So, that's exciting. The shop is coming along great.
That's good.
Changing gears slightly. So, we had the original door that was in the shop. It was a glass door, and it had one of those like hydraulic closers.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of like supposed to be like a soft close. Okay, all of the ability to slow the speed was gone.
Yep.
And so anytime anyone came through that door, they needed a new pair of shorts because they would let go and it would just slam. I swear that glass was about to break. And it's been like that since we bought the building. But we ended up getting a new door for it and replaced it. And now it's a soft close and it is so nice. Although the annoying thing is I don't know when people show up. Because it was so loud, I could be anywhere in the shop and I'd hear this loud bang and I'd be like, "Oh, someone's here." Especially someone new. Like if it was someone old, they could had been in there a couple times, they would catch the door.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because my dad's come in and out of that door so much that he says anytime he goes into a business, he grabs the door and like
Yeah.
closes it because he's developed a habit.
You need
But
one of those annoying bells or something.
yeah, so and then we've finished all of the roof on the inside, so we're gonna start working on framing up what's gonna become the office area on the front of the shop.
Okay.
So
That'll be nice.
yeah, so because right now all of our desks and everything are kind of just in the middle of the shop floor and
Yeah.
kind of sporadic and just kind of there. So it's kind of nice because it's close to the machines, but it's also loud and really hard to think if you're not working on the machines actively. So
I have 2 desks. I have one right next to the mill, and then I have this one here in the
yeah,
office.
so my desk is technically a rolling desk, and so
Mm-hmm.
what we're probably going to do is I'd like to keep that one as a rolling desk and have it to where we can move it next to machines if you're working on something, so you can bring your laptop out, but still have permanent. Like me and Weston are each going to have our own office,
Yeah.
and so we'll live in there unless we're running the machines, and then we can take the laptop and on the rolling desk, and hopefully we both don't need it at the same time, but if we are running or setting up a job and are going back and forth between cam and the machine, we can have it right there.
Yeah. And at some point, you'll probably buy yourself a new laptop, and then you can throw your old laptop next to the machine. I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly the situation that happened to me. Like, I just got a
Yeah.
new computer, and I had the old computer. And it's like, well, that'll be the mill computer.
Yeah. And I would like to do that at some point is just get some like not even like turning my laptop into an old computer and setting it out there, but having small lightweight computers that I can remote into my computer,
Yep.
leave it at the desk, but then have a computer next to each machine. I think that's going to make sense at some point. So then you can kind of use it if you need it.
Yeah. Though with Fusion, like, I don't know, Fusion runs pretty well on less optimal hardware.
Yeah, but can you be logged into multiple Fusion like
It just logs you
computers?
out over on the other spot.
Yeah, and that's the only reason that I wouldn't want to do it that way.
Actually, correction, it does not even log you out. It just like pauses your session. So if you open it up somewhere else and you have Fusion running, like if you go open it on your laptop and you have Fusion running on your desktop, it'll be like, hey, you're logged in on another computer. Do you want to, pause that session? And you're like, yes. And you hit like yes like 4 times, and then you're up and running. And then you can come back to your main computer and you hit yes like 4 times and you're up and running. It's
Gotcha.
relatively seamless.
Gotcha. Yeah, and the other thing that might end up happening is if we have permanent desks, I could stick a powerful desktop and then have my laptop be
Yep.
the the mobile one, like it is.
Yep.
Which that would make sense because I wouldn't mind building a more powerful computer for a stationary desk. What else? I I was not a fan of Xometry today. So I made a part for Xometry and it had a virtual QC. I made the part actually yesterday. I already delayed it 2 days because of tooling. I ordered tooling. It was supposed to come overnight. It ended up coming ground and was delayed. And so I talked to Xometry. They got it pushed back 2 days. But the tools actually came in a day early. So I got the parts run. And then today was the day that all I needed to do was get the virtual QC checked off. And then I could ship the parts. I went back and forth with them like 5 times and found out like 3/4 of the way through the day that they didn't send me all the paperwork I needed to fill out to get the virtual QC done. And I called them on the phone, talked to like 3 different people, never got a hold of the person who I needed to get a hold of to just go over the phone the virtual QC. That way we can get it nailed out so I can get it shipped out. Anyways, long story short, they ended up extending the day to tomorrow, and I'm still trying to get everything figured out on it, and it's really annoying.
Yep.
So it was it was a really awesome paying job that took less than an hour to run, and now it's taken basically a full day of my time trying to get through the stupid QC thing. Anyways.
Yeah, that's annoying. I've had relatively good luck with the VQCs. I don't think I've had any kicked back to me that were my fault. The first time I did one, there were like the way the VQCs work, the visual quality checks, or it's a virtual quality check, not a visual quality check. The virtual quality check, the way it works is basically you send all your paperwork to Xometry and then somebody stamps it yay or nay. They either want you to do more or less, but it has a like pre-filled inspection template. It's an Excel document. It's actually way better than their normal one.
Mm-hmm.
And they're supposed to provide that for you. And the first time it was like the first time I'd ever done one. And so I just did the normal inspection template. And they're like, no, you have to use ours. And I looked for it and it was like, I don't like, I can't find the form that I'm supposed to use. This is the only form that I know of. And they're like, oh no, it's uploaded to your job. And I looked around on the job board or on my like job in the Xometry workspace or whatever they call that. And I was like, can you send me instructions? And they sent me instructions. And it was like, you just click this button. I was like, I don't have that button. I sent them a screenshot. And they're like, oh, we forgot to upload it to you. It's like, well, thanks. Can you get that fixed? And they emailed it over and I got it and it went fine. I think they have forgotten that dumb form for me for probably like 6 out of the 8 VQCs that I've done.
Yeah. And I've been on the platform long enough that I've done enough of those VQCs that they used to accept the old standard ones.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So that's the other side of the equation is I've been off Xometry long enough that I didn't know that they ever filled out that stuff for you. And so I've done virtual QCs many times, and I just used the standard one and just filled in all the information, and that worked fine. And so...
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore, apparently. So I'm doing a little bit of learning. So that some of this is on me, but it's also a lot of it's on them for just not getting back to me. And like, I would email, I would call, I was like, I am available. Walk me through this so we can get this done and I can get the part shipped out. And could not get a hold of anyone that could help me through that.
Yeah.
So everyone I talked to that I could get a hold of was just not a part of the VQC team and couldn't help. So other than like trying to poke someone on the QC team to actually come and help me, and none of them ever did.
So I don't know how I have wandered into this territory, but on literally every job I take on Xometry, I get an email from someone that's like, hey, I'm the project manager for this job. This looks like a complicated, or we have this job flagged as a complicated job. Send me an email if you need anything. And I get like the same, template email, like I said, literally almost every job I take, because I take small parts and I think some automatic flag goes on them. But what that means is I have the email of the person who actually cares about the job, and I can just email them for whenever I have like a problem with this. And generally they get it taken care of within, at most a few hours.
Yeah. I have not been able to find this person.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's that. Going on to the subject of inspection though, I did have Kessence stop in. Is that how you pronounce it? Kessence?
Kientz.
I always mispronounce that. Kientz. Stop in and they demoed a machine. I've had a lot of people tell me that I would not like this machine and that it's a dumb thing. This machine was sweet. It was a really cool machine. It wasn't.
Remind me which one it was.
It was a different machine than what they talked about on the phone or on the meeting or on the phone call that I had with them. I don't remember the exact model and what it was, but the basic gist of it is it had a camera and you could throw parts on it and it would measure them. So that part I've seen before, but what I didn't realize is that it also had a probe, and it had this little arm that would come over, and it could have different stylus sizes, and it would pick them up, and then it could go probe it automatically. So you could throw,
that's cool.
You could throw like 10 parts or 100 parts, depending on the size on it, and write a program. And we wrote a program for some of the parts that I had run. And then you can, as many as you can fit on the table, you stick them on there, it'll figure out the orientation, it'll figure out the features you want it to probe, and it can either do them with the camera. So it had three ways of measuring parts. You could do it optically, you could do it with a laser, or you could do it with a probe.
Hmm.
And it was all built into this one machine.
It
And
sounds very expensive.
they quoted me like in the ballpark of like 60, which wasn't that bad compared.
Yeah, I guess in the CMM world, that's not bad. For me, that right now is very expensive, but for what it's offering,
for me, that's also extremely expensive. But for the automation level of just throw parts on it, hit a button, and it'll automatically do everything, like it is amazing what it can do. Just from that aspect of it. And the only thing that the biggest con that I have is the optical way that it measures. I'm sure it's accurate, but I don't know if it's as accurate as they claim it is. And the only reason I say that is because they have a demo where they throw like 6 parts on it, and it'll find the bad parts. And it came up with different values when they threw it on there a couple different times up to which parts were failing and which ones weren't. And so that threw up a couple red flags. And then there was one other thing that it did, and it said it was this value, and then the next time it was off by like 1.5 from what it said the first time or something like that. And I was like, there'll be some level of variance, but that seemed like a lot.
Yeah.
And so like the optically way that it was doing it just wasn't as impressed with. But the rest of it, like the laser and the physical probe, both of those seem pretty good.
I've been looking at measuring microscopes, Toolmaker's microscopes, or the digital equivalent. And the company I've been looking at, Insize, has basically they have one that's like 2300. It has a pretty small view window, but it can measure to, I think it was like 9 microns or something at its lowest magnification, which is pretty good. And I was looking around, and they have a different one, which is like 5 microns with a much bigger work area, which is probably what I would buy. That one was about $4,500. But they have one that will do at least the optical side of this. And it was only 7,000 or 7,500 or something like that. And you can connect it to a PLC or a robot.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. They did not have, however, the measuring resolution or accuracy noted in the like catalog page that I saw. So I'm curious if it's less accurate than their more toolmaker oriented stuff.
Yeah. All I know is after watching that demo, I'm going to have some sort of automated probing or automated CMM style machine at some point. It was way too convenient and way better than taking hand measurements.
Yeah. The Insize one is definitely tempting. If that can export you a CMM report, like, yeah, that would be really nice for anything, but particularly Xometry.
Yeah. And I want to become a better machinist, and the best way to become a better machinist is to have a more accurate understanding of what you're cutting.
Yep.
Period.
Or what your results are, your parts are, yeah.
And so I'm sure it's a very famous saying that I've heard before, something along the lines of, you can't manage what you can't measure. Something along those lines. And if you're trying to make tight tolerance and good quality parts, if you can't quantify it, then it doesn't matter what you do. You don't know if you're making positive or negative changes.
Yep.
So that being said, the parts that I did end up probing, if that machine was as accurate as they claimed it was, my Haas was holding sub 1/10 for the locational accuracy of some bores that I was cutting in relation to some slots.
It's pretty darn decent.
It was like it was like half a thou or half a tenth accuracy, or like it was between half a tenth to a 1.5 tenths, something in that range.
Okay.
But like there was many of them that were sub 1/10 for like locational accuracy of a hole relative to a slot, and that made me really happy. If that was accurate.
Yeah.
So, and I think that one was because we ended up we did it optically, and then I also had them verify it with the probe, and
Okay.
they reported back pretty similar values. So that was pretty cool.
Well, I'd hate to end our party early here, but would I would be okay with only staying up to 4 tonight and not 5. So
No, you're good. You got a lot to get done, and I honestly need to get an early morning in the shop because I've got to drop off parts to a local customer, and I'm meeting with them at 10, and I've got to finish the parts. Plus, I got to get the Xometry VQC thing still figured out, and hopefully, I
yep.
don't want to waste another day doing that. So, anyways, it's been good.
This will be our outro music for today.
Yeah,
That's kind of where I'm at the moment.
yeah.
Uh,
That's the job shop life. There's high highs
Yep.
and low lows. So,
for those, I don't think I'm sorry, I'm interrupting the outro. I don't think I said this on air, but so far this will be my best Xometry. No, this will be my best month in business by myself. Period. Since I went full time, so
woohoo!
It's a lot of work, and I'm dying, but mostly because of dumb things. It'll slowly get resolved over time as I get better machining. So we're still making progress, even if I'm suffering.
You sound like me back in October, November of last year.
I remember that.
Where it was just like, I know it sounds like I'm complaining, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm drowning, but it's a good drown. The only other thing I was going to say while I'm thinking about it is I've had several people say they're interested in that speed part that I talked about doing.
Yes. I got a lot of response about that.
And I have a design in my head. I just have to put it on the computer. And I think it's going to be a really cool part. Me and AJ have talked a little bit about some of the different designs that we both have. We both have a little bit differing opinions on how to go about it. But in the end, there'll probably be more than one part. But I like the idea of having something that we can all benchmark. And we'll see what that ends up being. But I'll leave it at that for now. Just know that we're both thinking about it, and we're both making progress. We're both just swamped. So, apart from that, I think that's all I got. So I guess we can do the outro now, which is this. So, yeah. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out and listening with us this week. We both got a lot going on right now, but there's a lot of excitement going on for both of us, I would say. Things are growing. We're moving forward, and we appreciate you guys hanging along for the journey and listening in, catching up with us each week. This is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro.